I'm glad you're here this morning. Turn to someone next to you and say, it's good to see you in church. I waited all week to sit next to you. You're a joy to sit next to this morning. We're glad you're here. We are glad you're here. We're excited about what God's doing. And so we started last week talking about this thought of habits. Someone say habits one more time. Habits. And basically the underlining thought was this, is we are people filled with habits. You got habits in your life? All right, maybe if you say no, just take a moment and think about your morning routine. Does it look kind of the same? Yep. Maybe a little bit. Maybe you got some habits in your life. And so we were starting to talk about, and again, this is propelling us to where we believe as a church, where God wants to take us. We are people filled with habits. All of us have them in our life. And again, if you don't believe me, I just want you to think about your last normal day. I know the weekends can look a little different, but think about your last normal day. Maybe last Friday, maybe last week. What did you do? Probably something normal. You got up in the morning, maybe an alarm got you up. Who gets up by alarm? Anyone? Any alarm people in the house? All right. Your body just gets you up. All right. Okay. Cool. I'm similar to that. My body naturally kind of wakes me up. I normally get up just like a minute or two before my alarm goes off. It is weird how your body adjusts, isn't it? Like your body just knows when to get up. It is the weirdest thing. Well, anyway, maybe your last normal day, you got up by the alarm, or your body got you up. You got out of bed, got eye crust all in your eye, and you're getting it all out, and you're waking up, and you're kind of fighting whether you want to sleep in another 5 minutes or you decide to fully get out of bed, right? And then once you get out of bed, what do you normally do? Just fill in the blank there. Maybe jump in the shower. Maybe brush your teeth. Maybe go for a jog. I don't know. Maybe get out and then you go back into bed because you're like, I ain't getting up this time, right? I don't know, but we all have a typical routine, and then we start our day, right? And our day maybe looks the same. Maybe you go to work. Maybe you drive the same way to work. Maybe you walk or I don't know. But we have this typical routine every single day because we are men and women filled with, someone say, habits. Habits. It is ridiculous how many habits we have in our life that we don't even naturally even realize. You know, and I want to tell you this. I didn't even I was last Sunday we were preaching about this, and it was remarkable because I was thinking on Thursday or Friday, bringing this all together. God was just putting some stuff in my heart that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. But I was thinking about, I don't even naturally remember my drive home from work every day. Come on. Isn't that weird? Like, I'll get home and I'll pull in front of my house and I'll be like, I just drove home. Like, it's scary. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got just the drive down just so memorized. Like, I'm attentive. Like, I'm not like a crazy driver. But I'm just get home and I'm just like, I'm home. It's the weirdest thing. Like, habits control our life. And that's not a bad thing. But we were learning last week, and just to recap a little bit, that much of what we do normally results of not just constant choices, but of habits. We make choices in a day, but a lot of what we do is done from habits. I saw this week, and this was astonishing to me. Duke University, right? The really good basketball team. No one. All right, moving on. All right. Duke University, they did a study. They had their people do a study, and they said this. This is what they concluded after their study. This was a study over years and years. They said over 40% of everyone's daily actions aren't a result of decision making, but a result of habits. Over 40% of our day-to-day life is filled with habits. You got some habits? Maybe not. We'll find out because that just was kind of interesting this week. And so we learned a little bit last week that if you want to change your life, who would say here, man, Pastor, I want to change my life. I want a little bit of a different life. Anyone? All right, just me? All right. Guys, you guys are perfect. Maybe you should be up here talking this morning. But if you say, man, I want to change my life, the direction my life is heading, man, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to change who I am. I'm pretty confident in who I am, but there are some things I want to change. If that's you this morning, then I want to encourage you with this, and this is kind of recapping a little bit of last week. Then we have to start by changing our habits. We have to start by changing them. And we talked a little bit last week about sometimes we start something and we don't see progress fast enough. How many guys are impatient people? Anyone like me? All right, cool. So we start something, we don't see it happening as fast as we want, so we give up. That could be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Maybe you start progress, you want to get a little bit healthier. So you start walking once or twice a day, and over the course of a week, you don't realize, this ain't working. I'm still, I'm 2 pounds heavier. This thing does not work. So you give up. Or maybe at the same time, you're like, man, I want to get in better shape, and you sneak and you get into the chocolate candy bar thing a few too many times, and you're like, man, this isn't bad. This isn't really affecting me. What you don't realize is this simple thing, and we got to this last week. Our life is the sum total. Someone say sum total. Our life is the sum total of all the small decisions that we make. So all the small little insignificant decisions you're making right now are adding up in your life to dictate who you are or who you'll become. So I want to challenge you this morning. If you say, I'm not comfortable with who I am, I'm not comfortable in where I'm going, where my life is, then maybe you need to not just set a new goal, but you need to change some habits in your life. And so we were talking a little bit last week about how goals don't just determine success, but systems do. Someone say systems. Systems. We're going to go somewhere. I'm just recap a little bit, and we'll get into what I'm going to share about today. I talked to you about the simple thought of a guy by the name of James Clear wrote a book, and he said this thought. He said, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Someone say systems. Systems is the same way to say habits. So you may have a goal. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better wife. I want to be a better friend. All these things are good goals. But what we don't realize is, how do we get to where we want to get to? By creating constant little day-to-day habits that achieve where God wants us to go. Does that make sense? You with me? And so last week, we started, and this is my final recap, then we're going to get to where we're going to go today. We said this: successful people do consistently, someone say consistently, what other people do occasionally. You want to be successful in your life? You want to see God do a great work in and through you? I want to challenge you. Consistency is where it's at. Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. What other people do occasionally. I gave you the example last week, man. You know, you walk into the gym and you see all these big, buff, amazing dudes who they look like they got it, like they're like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Like, yeah. It's not just occasionally they wake up and say, I need to go to the gym today, right? They don't just wake up and one day, boom, there it is. They're building this consistent habit of every day making choices that are getting them to where they want to go. Are you with me? And so what I want to do today this morning I want to look at a biblical example of this in the Bible. We talked about him a little bit last week, and today what I want to do is I want to dive deeper into the life of a guy that you probably know. If you don't know, you've probably heard a story about him. It's a famous story in the Bible. And what I want to do is I want to pull out some truths about some habits that he had in his life and that we can start to do in our life that will change us. Because here's the one thing we're going to go today. Through this, we're going to learn that if we start simple habits, someone say habits, they will make a big, big difference. Someone say difference. So I'm going to look at the life of Daniel. Someone say Daniel. How many of you guys have heard of Daniel in the lion's den? Anyone? Maybe 2 people? 3 people? All right. 4 people have heard about him. All right. Well, if you haven't heard of Daniel, Daniel was one day in the lion's den. All right. Now, many of us look at that story, and you've learned it maybe in Sunday school, you've heard it in church, and you've heard of Daniel being in lions' dens, and he didn't get eaten, and like, whoa, that's awesome, that is so cool. But let me tell you what, there was some things that were in place long before he went into a den full of lions that was able to help him in that moment. And so I want to look at Daniel, I want to look at the life of Daniel, and we're not going to look at the whole book of Daniel, because it's a pretty long book. But I want to look at chapter 6, and we're going to look at a few truths about Daniel. And we're going to learn how he had some habits. I'm going to say habits. And these habits dictated where he wanted to go in his life. Maybe you say today, Pastor, I want to quit smoking. I want to quit drinking. I want to quit doing drugs. I want to quit doing this. I want to quit doing that. Can I tell you what? It's not going to come from you setting a goal to stop it. It's going to come from you setting up simple habits in your life that can control where you go in life. Someone say amen. Amen. All right, so let's look at Daniel just a moment. So Daniel... quick recap, and then we'll go to Daniel 6:4. Daniel lived in Israel, and he was taken captive. Someone say captive. He was like a prisoner. They took him captive. Well, while he was prisoner, the king said, I want you to choose 120 of the best, and I want you to bring them before me. And for 3 years, they'll learn our ways, they'll learn our language, they'll learn about who we are. And after the 3 years, they'll come and they'll personally serve me. Meaning that they're gonna personally give me wisdom in a big decision. They're gonna help run this big Babylonian nation, which wasn't just like a small little nation. Babylon at the time was a very big nation. Someone say big. And so Daniel was one of the 120 selected out of all the people. And not only was he one of the 120, but Daniel stood out among all of the 120. He was what you would say the best of the best. Now, you just don't automatically stand out. You don't go to a job interview and automatically just stand out. There's something about you that makes you stand out. Does that make sense? There's qualities. And they don't just naturally come. It's habits. It's a system you put in your life that change you. So watch this. Daniel chapter 6, starting in verse 3. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps. So these were the people that the king brought before him that were the 120. But Daniel stood out among all of them. Why did he stand out? By his exceptional qualities. Watch this. That the king planned to set him over the whole what? The whole kingdom. So this guy Daniel stood out among all the wise men that the king had chosen for himself. Something was in his life that made him stand out. Someone say stand out. Something was in his life. Something. He had spiritual excellence, maybe. You would say, man, he had a walk with God that was different. He had a dedication. He had disciplines. He had something that stood out that the king was like, man, this dude is not like the rest of these wise guys. This man stands out. If you want your life to make a difference, if you want your life to be different, if you want to see God use you in a different way, it starts by simple, everyday habits that will dictate your life. So I want to give you the story behind the story, and then we're going to dive into what was the small little habit that made Daniel stand out. Paul, if you're looking for a Bible, buddy, they're in the back on the bookshelf, all right? What made Daniel stand out among these 120 and to the king? But first I want to give you a little backstory, all right? You ready for the backstory?
Ready for the backstory.
Someone say, tell me. So I want to tell you this. I want to set you up for this. When God starts doing a work, you set some good habits. You start waking up a little early, getting into God's Word. You pick a verse a day and you start reading it. You start talking to God. You set aside some time just to seek God each morning in prayer. When you start doing that, you'll find yourself building in habits that are building your life in a good direction. Someone say good direction. And when you start doing that, I want to tell you this. People take a look at that, and this is one thing I've learned. Someone say, what have you learned? I've learned that success breeds jealousy. And this is what I mean by that. When you start doing well, sometimes there's people around you that start seeing that. They're saying, oh no, not this. And that's what happened to Daniel. Daniel stood out among the 120. The king saw that, and he said, man, I'm going to set this dude in front of the whole kingdom. He's going to be my personal assistant. And the people that were in Daniel's squad, they did not like that. And so you know what they did? Someone say, what they do? Watch this. Daniel 6, starting in verse 4. At this, the administrators and the satraps, these were the people that the king had pulled aside, the 120. They tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel and his conduct over government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find, someone say, no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. So these guys were trying to find a way to trip up Daniel. But guess what? They couldn't find one because he was trustworthy. He was an honorable man. And so, again, they saw him being successful, but at the same time, they were like, man, we have no ground to shake him up. So know what they did? Someone said, what they do? So what they decided to do was they said, there's one thing that Daniel's committed to. It's his God. Like this dude is sold out for his God. This dude, man, he is like committed to his God. And so they went to the king and they said, hey man, can we set up a decree for the next 30 days that if anyone would pray to any other God other than you, because at the time, a king was considered a God. So they said, if anyone prays to any other king or God other than you, we're going to throw them in the lion's den. And so the king said, man, that sounds pretty good. Like that would be kind of cool. Yeah, let's do that. And so they put out the decree and they send it out to all the people saying, look, if anyone prays to any other God other than the King of Kings, meaning the king at the time of Babylon, which his name was Nebuchadnezzar, or sorry, not Nebuchadnezzar, King Darius, then you will be thrown in the lion's den. And so, what we are going to see is we're going to see the system or habit Daniel had that led to him being successful and standing out among other people. Are you ready? All right, here was Daniel's habit. Are you ready? Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. Now when Daniel learned that the decree, what decree? The decree that if anyone would worship any other king other than the King of Kings, which was the king at the time, they're going to get thrown in the lion's den. So Daniel heard about this decree. had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows were open toward Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees and he prayed, giving thanks to his God, just, and here's the key, catch this, just as he had done before. What made Daniel stand out among all the people? What made Daniel to an ungodly king, a king that was wicked? What made Daniel stand out? What did he do? He had a life of prayer. And not just like watching Netflix and maybe pray, watching all the cool Amazon Prime videos, right? Or I don't know, whatever you do, or figuring out all your stressful things. First, I got to figure out all these stressful things, and then I'll think about praying. No, Daniel would stop 3 times a day, and he would pray. Someone say pray. It was a habit in his life. Daniel found his identity in stopping 3 times a day, and he would pray. He would seek God. He would spend time with God. God, I need wisdom. God, I need your direction. He would stop and he would ask God for the things. So what made him stand out when all of a sudden all of these 120 men, they were pretty wise and pretty good at what they did, but Daniel stood out? He had a habit in his life that made him stand out. Never underestimate how our God, someone say our God, can do something big through one small habit. If you want to see your life change, if you want to see something change in your life, you have to create a God-honoring habit. And over time, here's the thing. Over time, not just instantly, not all of a sudden. God will start to do a work. You start getting into his word. You start praying. And you may not see results. Again, I said like last week, you may do it for a week. And next thing you know, you're walking down the street. You cuss someone out. You say, man, this whole reading church thing don't work. Can I tell you what? Over time, if you set up to be consistent with God, he'll be consistent with you. And you'll start to see the change in your life. You want to be a better spouse, a better son, a better wife, a better husband, a better daughter, whatever it is, a better friend. You're going to find it over time through small habits. So I don't want to do this where I just want to give you something that personally I started. It was a small little habit. I'm only 28 years old, so again, I don't like, I look at pastors and men who have been doing ministry for decades and decades, and I see their life, and sometimes you get intimidated, like, man, I want to one day be like that. Can I tell you what? It didn't happen by accident. Amen. Does that make sense? They had systems and habits in place that got them to where they wanted to go. Maybe your life is falling apart. Your life is blowing up. Your life is miserable. Can I tell you what? It's because your habits. You need to change your habits. Well, I'm good, Pastor. Well, you better be careful. You ain't good. You better change your habits. So one of the things I started doing this past year was I started doing something that I hate. I read a book early on. It was about a year and a half ago I read this book, and it was about creating healthy habits. And I picked out one thing that I do not like doing the most. And you want to know what I don't like doing the most? Is this thing called reading. Someone say reading. I do not like reading. I just don't. I'm not a person who likes reading. I don't know why. And so the beginning of last year, I decided to read. And I said, you know what? I'm going to set a goal to read so many books, but I'm going to start by reading one. I'm going to read it all the way through. And so in January 2018, I grabbed my first book. I read it the whole way through. And I'm like, man, this wasn't bad. But what was I teaching myself? Not so much of what I was reading, but I was teaching myself that I'm a disciplined person. I can do this. And reading is good for me. When I read, I learn and I grow. But I'm teaching myself I'm a disciplined person. And so as I started reading, month after month would go by, and then next thing you know, December rolls around. I ended up reading about 30 books last year, which is incredible for me because I could barely get through one in a year. But you know why? It was the simple thing of teaching myself, you know what? I'm going to do the thing that I don't like doing the most. Why? Because I'm going to show myself that I'm a disciplined person. But it didn't start last year. Someone say it didn't start then. See, when I was 19 years old, I began my first kind of ministry job. I became a youth pastor. And one of the things I learned early on was I need God. If I didn't know it then, I knew what I needed then. And so one of the things I started doing early on is this. I started waking up early in the morning, and I started praying. I would set my alarm about 15, 20 minutes earlier than when I would get up, and I would just spend time with the Lord. Now, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that was a pretty long time for me at 19. I was like, man, it's, a lot of time. But I started somewhere. I set a habit every day doing the same thing. Waking up, thanking God. God, thank you for today. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for waking me up, God, today. I need you. And I would have a prayer list of people I would pray for that day. But every day I would create a habit. Can I tell you what? People who are walking strong with God didn't just by accident get there.
Come on.
They didn't by accident stumble in a relationship with God. It happens because God not just saves them, but they begin to implement habits in their life that set them up to where they want to go. Someone say habit. So early on, I started spending time with the Lord and praying. Can I tell you what? Now today, not over almost a decade later, 9 years later, I wake up early in the morning. Probably earlier than a lot of you. Maybe not some of you. Some of you guys are very early. Like Pastor Steve, you all got me beat by a long shot, all right? But I wake up pretty early for myself. And I'll spend about an hour, hour and a half, depending on the day, in prayer. And you know why? Because a small little habit at 19 years old, waking up early, built into something where I'm not even satisfied anymore waking up and just having 15 minutes. I need more. Does that make sense? A small little habit, almost a decade later, turns into something where I see myself and I'm like, wow, I'm not even satisfied with an hour now. It doesn't just happen. It's a habit. Someone say habit. I heard early on, being raised in a Christian home about tithing. So when I got my first job, guess what I started doing? I didn't make much money, but I started giving God the first 10% of my income. And you know what happened over time? Someone say, what happened? I'm glad you asked. Thanks for asking. You know what happened? I began over time, not instantly, not all of a sudden, I began to find myself extremely crazy generous. And you may say, well, you're bragging. I'm not bragging. Because I don't have much to give, even right now. But you know what? That simple act taught me that I can be generous with my time, with my talent, with my money. I can be generous with it. It doesn't just happen. I remember I started tithing early on in my life. I started my first job doing that, so on. Well, after a while, I saved up enough money and I bought myself a nice watch. It wasn't a cheap watch. It was a pretty expensive watch. It wasn't a $50, $100 watch. It was a nice watch, all right? It was a couple $100. I bought myself a nice watch. I'd saved money. I bought it. Well, while I was there, at the store, I bought it, picked out the one I've been wanting, and I was wearing this thing. You know what I'm saying? You know how you buy something, you wear it, you show everyone like, look what that guy. Oh, you like it? I know. I just kind of picked it up, All right. Well, I got this watch, and I really loved it. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. Well, a few months into having the watch, I was talking to someone, and I was helping this couple through an issue they were going through, and I felt the Lord impress on me that, look, you can give them the watch, and they can maybe use the money from the watch to help them. And I was like, man, they ain't going to use it to help them. They're going to use it to help themselves to some nice whatever, right? Or they're going to sell it and do something. And I felt the Lord really impressing me, like, you're helping them. You need to trust with what I'm doing in their heart. You need to give them the watch and let them sell it. Oh, God, this is hard, man. And I'm being serious. I remember I went to my dad and I'm like, Dad, I feel the Lord telling me to do this. Tell me He's not telling me to do it because I really like this watch. It was a really nice watch. I'm telling you, I'm not a big watch person, but for some reason, I really like the watch. And after a week or so, I felt the Lord strongly telling me to do it. So you know what I did? The next time I meet up with a couple, I said, look, I've been working really, really hard. And they said, okay, why are you telling us that? I said, I want you to know I've been working really, really hard. And I said, I've been saving up for something that I wanted. I wanted to treat myself to something just to, for the hard work I've been doing. And they said, all right. I said, no, I'm getting somewhere with this. Just stick with me. I took off my watch. I said, I worked hard for this. I said, I spent a lot of time saving up for this. I said, there's a lot of sweat and, investment in this. I looked at him and I said, I feel like the Lord wants me to give it to you. And I want you to use it for some things coming up that you guys need it for. And I just pray that you'll be wise with it. Why? It doesn't happen just randomly. Someone decides that, yes, someone could, but they make it with the wrong heart. It's a habit of giving God when I was 17 years old, when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. Why? It's a habit. Someone say habit. It just doesn't happen over time. It's a habit. Someone say habit. It's a habit. I remember there was a time where I wasn't reading the Bible every day. You know what I'm saying? Y'all be like, you're a pastor. There was a time where I wasn't reading God's Word every day. And you know what? It started with a few years ago. I said, you know what? I'm going to read the whole Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation. That's not easy. And a whole year I decided to do that. And through that, it built a heart for God's Word. It built in a habit. Now where I'm not satisfied with skipping a day reading God's Word. At the very minimum, you know what I do? I have this thing called a smartphone, and it has this Bible playing on it, and I can at least be in God's Word, even if it's just a verse a day. I'm in His Word. Because why? It's a habit. You have to start somewhere. You want to be closer to God. It's not going to happen just randomly out of the blue. Oh, I'm so close with God now. This is amazing. You have to start somewhere. Someone say somewhere. Somewhere. You have to build in. You want to see big changes? Start with small choices, and they'll change who you are. How did Daniel set himself apart? How did he have the faith to stare down lions in a lion's den? You know how it started? It started with a daily habit of seeking God in what? In prayer. It started with a daily habit. Based on who you want to become. Last week we said, who do you want to be? 50, 60, 70 years from now, 20, 15 years from now. Who do you want to become? Because when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. You with me so far? So this week I want to expand on that. And I don't want to just say, who do you want to become? But I want to add on that. I want to say, what one habit do you need to start this week in your life? Doesn't have to be big. Better if it's small. But what one habit do you need to start this week that will start pushing you closer to God? Someone say closer. So, who do you want to become? I want to be a better spouse, a better husband. I want to be a better man. I want to be free from addiction. I want to be free from this pain. Who do you want to become? What one habit then do you need to start that will get you to where you want to go? You with me? Maybe for someone it says, I want to be someone that spends more time with the Lord, so you want to wake up a little earlier. So instead of hitting the snooze button 10 times for your alarm clock, you're going to wake up the first time and using that extra 15, 20 minutes you have, and you'll spend time with God. Does that make sense? What habit? Well, Pastor, that won't seem big. Start small and watch what God will do. I'm telling you. I wrote down a couple just from some things I pulled this week. Maybe you say, I want to be someone who cares. Maybe you'll start each day just writing a small little note of appreciation to people in your life and giving it to them. Start small. Pastor, I want to be a person who's better organized. Maybe start by making your bed first thing. I'm terrible at that. My wife makes our bed. I'm terrible at making it. But again, you're teaching yourself, I'm organized. By what? By doing something so small, insignificant. You do that. You start somewhere. Pastor, I want to be a godly example to my children, to my teens. Why don't you start maybe at night, spending 5 minutes just reading a verse together? Start somewhere. Someone say start somewhere. I want to be a person that's focused. Maybe start with writing a list of 3 things each day, priorities that you're going to do each day. Just 3 things. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Start somewhere. Maybe you want to be a person who's healthier. This year, my wife's been really pushing me, and I'm going to try to get healthier. So what I really started to do this year, I've set a goal to start small and watch the big choice over time. I set a goal every single day I'm going to walk 20 minutes. Every day. Every day I'm going to walk 20 minutes. And you know what? Over time, what I've seen is, over the past, almost 2 months now, starting of the year, you find yourself not just satisfied with 20 minutes. Man, I could go for a little bit longer walk today. I got more time. Does that make sense? It breeds something that you never would have had if you don't start small and start somewhere. Someone say start small somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. Well, Pastor, I don't have a system in my life. You do. You have a system whether by default or by intent, but you have systems in your life. Maybe your system looks like this. You wake up late. You're angry, you're aggravated, your hair's everywhere, your breath smells, you're mad at the world, you wake up, you yell at your kids, you yell at your husband, you yell at your mom, whoever you live with, like you wake up an angry person, then you realize, man, I'm late getting to work, or I'm late getting where I need to go, so you're in a bad mood, people pass you by, and you're yelling at them, you give them the bird, right? I don't know, maybe you don't realize this, but that's your habit. That's who you are. Some of you guys, I don't like who I am. Well, change your habits. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Change your habits. Start small. I was thinking about this. I heard a pastor talk about this. I was thinking about it in my life. Maybe how it could have been so different. Maybe as a 19-year-old, I didn't start waking up early and spending time with God. So maybe I started just sleeping a little bit longer, missing time with the Lord. And over time, it started making me an angry, bitter person. Back then, I had hair, so my hair was everywhere, right? And I'm an angry, bitter person because I'm not waking up in the morning. And eventually, one day, I'm driving to work, and someone cuts me off, and I start chasing them down in my car, and the cops start to chase me, and then and I don't want to get a ticket, so I'm making all this up. But I'm saying, what if I would have missed that small little habit of waking up in the morning, spending time with God? Who knows where I would be? Does that make sense? But one little, small, little, insignificant habit that you say, man, this could make a difference. Watch what it can do in your life. Daniel had a habit. Wake up. Spend time with the Lord. I was looking at something this week. It's called the habit loop. Someone say the habit loop. Not the rabbit loop. The habit loop. And this is how it goes. I was doing some study on it because I heard a pastor talk about this thing called the habit loop, and I was intrigued in it, so I was doing some study on it. And this is basically what the habit loop is. All of us have a habit loop in our life. Here's how it works. There's something that causes a trigger, and that trigger causes a response, and the response causes a action. So here's how it simply works. This is just a simple one. Yours may be more intense. You wake up in the middle of the night, you walk by the fridge, you know there's food in the fridge. Oh, yeah. Right? So you look at the fridge, it's a trigger. It's triggering. There's a piece of cake in there. There's chocolate. I don't know. It triggers. So what does it do? It causes a response. I'll just open it up. Wow. And maybe your fridge smells horrible, but you see the little piece of cake, right? I don't know. So you open it up, that's the response. And then what happens? Then it causes an action. And then, guess what? You eat the cake, whatever, you drink the chocolate milk. Maybe yours is worse. Maybe you have a habit loop. You have something that causes a trigger. Maybe you want to stop drinking, but you walk by the same bar every day. Boom, it's a trigger. That trigger causes a response. I'll just go in and see if Jimmy's there today. You walk in the bar. Jimmy ain't there, but guess what? You know what else is there? It causes an action. You find yourself in a habit loop, and you cannot break it. Come on. Because here's why. Let me tell you. A habit loop. You need to start a new habit. And I want to give you two things to help you break the habit loop. A bad habit loop in your life. Again, you have something that's a trigger. It causes a response. Causes you to act on it. Does that make sense? So I want to help you today break some of the habit loops. I'm going to give you something at the end that we're going to be starting as a church the next couple of weeks to help with this. But one of the things is this, and there's two of them. Starting a new habit, you need to do two things. And here's the two things. Number one, you need to make it obvious. Someone say obvious. And number two, you need to make it easy. Someone say easy. So if you want to break the habit, if you want to break the person you're becoming, you want to break this bad habit, simply what you need to do is, one, make your new habit obvious and make it easy. We try to tackle too much. And we don't see success. We need to start there. So let's start with number one. Someone say make it obvious. Make it obvious. If you want to change what you do, change what you see. You know that's a proven study. If you want to change what you do, change what you see. Maybe you tend to buy just random stuff. You walk into a store and you walk down this one aisle that causes you to want all this stuff. So what you see, and it causes a trigger, causes a response, causes an action. Next thing you know, you're broke as a joke. You're in the negative in your bank account because it caused something to trigger. Does that make sense? Yep. It's a habit. Well, I'm just terrible with money. I'm terrible. I'll tell you what, because you got a series of habits. Pastor, I'm terrible with relationships. Well, you got a series of habits. Come on. You know what I'm saying? So what do you need to do? You want to start new habits? You need to make it easy. My wife got me on this thing right now. She wants me to take these vitamins, these men's vitamins, all right? She does. Real story. She got me on them. So she's like, are you going to remember to take them? I said, yeah, I'll remember to take them. But what I do is, I haven't told her yet, but I have a little trigger that helps me remember every morning to take 2 vitamins. You want to know what my trigger is? Say what's your trigger? Glad you asked. Thanks for asking. On my alarm, when it wakes me up, it says, take your vitamins! So you know what I do? I let the dog out and I take my vitamins. It's a trigger. It causes a response. It causes an action. Maybe you want to be healthier. Maybe you want to start reading a little bit before you go to bed. Don't leave the book on the bookshelf. Maybe put it right on your pillow right before you. Does that make sense? Have something as a trigger that will trigger the response into an action. I'm just giving you simple things. Maybe yours is more deep. Maybe it is getting drunk and drinking. Well, what's the trigger? You need to locate what the trigger is. Maybe you need to change what you see. Does that make sense? You need to change these things. I'm trying to practically help you because I believe as a church, God wants to take us in a direction to be all that He's called us to be. But in order to do it, we need to be people of, someone say, habits. Maybe you want to be a person who encourages others. So you start with a little note. And each morning you put a little notepad next to where you sleep. So it calls a trigger. I'm going to write a note today to someone I care about. Tell them I'm thankful for them. Make the cue obvious. But number 2, someone say make it easy. So here's what I say make it easy by. Don't start by saying I'm going to read the whole Bible this year because I'm going to get closer to God. What you need to do is start with 1 verse a day. Amen. You know how easy that is? 1 stinking verse. How many guys have a smartphone in here? Which I think most of you guys have. All you guys do. Did you know you can download this thing? It's for free. It's called the YouVersion Bible app. it gives you a verse in the morning and at night. 2 verses.
Come on now.
Some of you guys could start the morning, 1 little verse. Right before you go to bed at 10 o'clock, boom, a new verse pops up. Boom, here's your new verse. You could start there. Make it easy. Don't say, I'm going to read the whole book of Daniel because it seems interesting. Don't do that. Now, that's not a bad goal. Trust me, it's not a bad goal. But start somewhere easy. And when you start easy, you're going to find yourself wanting more. Maybe 1 verse over time will happen to be 2. Does that make sense? Start easy. Maybe you have a spouse and you say, our marriage is doing horrible. We're horrible. Maybe you say, we want to start praying together. Maybe it just starts with, at night before going to bed, just grab your spouse's hand and say one thing you're thankful for. We're thankful for whatever, for heat in the house. Start small. Does that make sense? Start so small and watch how it grows. Maybe you want to journal what God's doing in your life. You say, man, God's doing a lot of things. Start small. Just journal 1 sentence a day. That's too much, Pastor. 1 word. Start somewhere. 1 little small habit can change the direction of your life. Maybe you say, I want to get healthier. So maybe before bed, you do 10 push-ups. Maybe you can't do 10 push-ups, do 1. Maybe you can't do 1 push-up, get on your knees and go down 1 time. You can't do that, go down and stand up. Start right? Start somewhere. Don't just say, well, I can't, it's too much. It's a habit. Start, someone say start somewhere. Many people think they lack motivation. What they really lack is a system. You need to make a new habit obvious. You need to make it easy. Are goals bad? No! Goals are not bad. Goals are a great thing. Who do you want to be in 20 years, or 30 years, or 40 years? But let me tell you what. Your everyday habits are going to get you where you want to go. Or they may get you where you don't want to go. So here's what I'm going to help you. I'm going to wrap it up today. And I'm going to explain to the church how we're going to create healthy habits as a church. This is what you need to ask yourself tomorrow morning, even tonight before you go to bed. And this is what I was talking about the habit loop. I will do blank after I blank. I will do, what's your cue? I will do after I do boom. Here's what Daniel would have said. Daniel would have said, after I eat, I'm going to go and pray. Does that make sense? He had a system. He had a habit. What's yours? Maybe yours is after in the morning, after I make coffee, I read 1 Bible verse. After I put my kids to bed, I do a 30-second plank to get healthy. After I brush my teeth, I journal 1 sentence. Have something that triggers the action. Does that make sense? Get in a habit. Start somewhere. Don't look like you need to conquer the whole Bible in a day. Start somewhere. Maybe say after I journal, I grab my wife's hand and we say 1 thing we're thankful for. Start somewhere. Someone say somewhere. I want to give you this verse and then I'm going to bring it all together this morning. Who do you want to become? And what 1 habit do you need to start to get you to where you need to be? Watch this verse right here. Zechariah 4:10. Do not despise these small beginnings. Someone say small. A lot of people despise small beginnings. A lot of people despise small little habits. Don't make a difference. It does.
It does.
You don't find someone on Christian Street overdosing overnight. It's a small little habit. That makes sense? You with me? I'm just being real. It's a small little, and this won't bother me. But the same is true with God-honoring habits. It starts with a small little habit. Never despise the day of small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work what? Begin. What do you need to start? I would not even say tomorrow. What do you need to start today? What small little God-honoring habit? Maybe we leave church today, you're going to go home and gather your kids, you're going to say 1 verse to them. Start somewhere. Maybe we'll go home today after church and grab your spouse and say, hey, we're going to read 1 verse together. You know what? That's too much. Grab your spouse and say, I'm thankful for you. Great. Tomorrow do the same thing. Create a habit. And over time, a small habit will change your life. Can I tell you what? At 28 years old, I don't find myself, and I got a long ways to go. But I don't find myself where I am just by mistake, or I didn't just land here.
Come on.
Are you with me? Mm-hmm. It was small, little habits done over years and years, some almost a decade long, and they propelled me into a stronger relationship with God. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I am far from perfect, and I got a long ways to go. But small little habits I said last year I started with that small little habit of reading. I didn't start by reading a whole book. It started by reading a page. January 1st of 2018, I read one page and I felt so awesome. One page. Next day I read 2 pages. The next day after that I read half a page, right? Like, it's just progress. Start somewhere.
Keep teaching.
And I want to end with this thought, and I'm going to tell you as a church what we're going to start doing. Look at this thought. I want you to know this in your heart. You're not successful when you hit your goals somewhere in the future. That's a great thing, don't get me wrong. But I want to tell you this truth. You're successful when you've honored God today. Goals are great. You want to be free from addiction. That's a great goal. You want to be a godly woman. That's a great goal. You want to be a godly parent. That's an amazing goal. But why don't you start today with one habit? One small God-honoring habit. And watch it make you into the man and woman that God designed you to be. Now, as a church, here's what we're going to do to set us up for habits. Starting in a few weeks, you're going to hear me start making an announcement for signups. We're going to be praying as a church to launch what we're going to call small groups, or what we also may call life groups. And what these are going to be is small groups that meet around our city, outside of Sunday mornings. And we're going to intently get together and grow together. We'll have different life groups for different types of people. Maybe if you're a woman, a man, if you got children, or we're praying through what all this can look like, but I just want to get it out there. It's going to be, some may be once a week, some may be every other week. But here's what's going to happen. You start with one small little habit when we start sign-ups for life groups, and you sign up to the group that pertains to you, so you sign your name up, and you say, I'm going to be committed to every other week, or whenever your group meets, maybe once a week, I'm going to be committed to showing up. Whether it's an hour, 45 minutes, however long the group is, you're going to be committed to showing up. And what you're going to find yourself is this, creating a habit. Someone say habit. And you're going to see that habit make a big difference in your life. Are you with me? One small decision done over a period of time can change who you are and who you become. You know what breaks my heart the most is when I see someone walking down the road and they look at someone and say, man, they're just messed up. They're just, you know what I'm saying? You ever seen someone like that? Maybe I've done that before. But can I tell you what? You need to re-gauge your mind and realize this. It's habits. Does that make sense? And I pray the next time you see that, the Lord will spark a fire and say, what habits do you need to start in your life right now to get you back where God wants you to be? Does that make sense? Are you with me? What small God-honoring habits? So in a few weeks, we're going to start sign-ups for life groups. And when we do, I'm going to challenge you with this. Don't just say that's for someone else. That's going to be for everyone. We'll have groups that will pertain to you. We'll have different types of groups. Some may be health and fitness groups. Some may be Bible study groups. Some may be financial groups. They're going to look different. But here's what's all going to be the same. They're going to be committed to helping you start somewhere small and watch what God can do in your life. Someone say amen to that. Amen. So I'm going to ask you, who do you want to become? Who do you want to be? And then what habit? What one small little habit do you need to start right now, today?